Welcome to the Registry Insider. I'm Bill Seifarth, CEO and Executive Director of the National Registry of EMTs. And today I have Dr. George Hatch with me from CoAEMSP to talk about accreditation and its role, certainly in EMS as it relates to paramedic and now soon AEMT programs. So George, thank you for joining me.
Thanks, Bill. It's a pleasure to be here, kind of like on the cutting edge of you guys launching this. So thanks for the invite. I really appreciate it.
Well, good. So tell the listeners and viewers, what is accreditation? What's its role? What's its purpose? And what's its value as it relates to EMS education in particular?
Yeah, great question, or a bunch of that rolled up into that. So first, let me start sort of with the history lesson that this organization goes back, much like the registry, to the early days of EMS. It goes back to 1978, not quite as long as the National Registry's existence, but there were some smart people thinking about what was a need for measuring and benchmarking educational programs against a standard back in the 1970s. So the group was established in 1978. We, launched from there. And I would say, in some states, accreditation took off early on. There were programs that voluntarily submitted themselves to the process. There were other states that required it. I think when I came on in 2007, there were 14 states that mandated accreditation. But it really wasn't until the national EMS community got into the EMS education agenda for the future that they were measuring when might that take, could we do it? Would we have to change laws and rules and regs? When could we do that? And so it wasn't until January 1 of 2013, right, that the mandate for accreditation at the paramedic level took place.
Which the National Registry did,
with the National Registry. So you guys, even backing that up, that were 5 years before that, you told everybody, look, we're giving you 5 years. Think about getting this done or be in the process of getting it done. So a lot's happened since 2013. Here we are in 2024. We started back then with about 220 programs, and we're just shy of about 800 programs right now at the paramedic level. So it's grown exponentially because of that requirement. And I think that's important.
So, well, thank you for that. And that you mentioned the EMS education agenda for the future, which ends with a systems approach. And certainly accreditation is one of those 5 components.
Yeah.
National certification is also another one of those. Yeah. So our two organizations work hand in glove or in locked arms a lot, obviously, because our focus is on, quote unquote, protecting the public by making sure we have competent clinicians. And in some respects, CoA does a similar thing, but is it more of an advocate for the student and making sure that the quality education is there, correct?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think back to the education agenda for a second, they talked about the 3, almost like a sandwich, or if you think about books in a bookcase, there was the National EMS core content, the EMS education standards, and the National EMS scope of practice. And then on either end of that book, 3 set of books was the National EMS certification, the registry, and National Accreditation, which is the CoAEMSP, through our work under the umbrella of CAHEP. So again, I think accreditation brings value. A lot of people are not necessarily sure about what it does, but it does in fact protect the public. It does protect the students. So students are actively enrolled in educational programs at the paramedic level. And
that have met a standard.
Yeah, they've met a standard. The educational program has met a standard, and that benchmarking of the program against the standards for, the resources that they have to be able to do education is really what it is that we're measuring. So we're measuring outcomes, like how do they do on the National Registry exam? Do they get a job? And what are the attrition and retention rates of students that enter and then subsequently exit the program? And those metrics are actually U.S. Department of Education metrics. So it's not something that we're making up. It's really what all accreditors in all levels of education have to report.
Good. So as it relates to accreditation for paramedic programs, you have an exciting announcement about Advanced EMT programs that you've done. So tell us a little bit about that journey to develop the standards and what's the timeline for this?
Yeah, thanks. I think the first thing I would say is that this is a voluntary process, right? Nobody's saying, hey, you got to do this by this date. So on January 1 of 2025, we were going to be prepared to launch voluntary accreditation at the Advanced EMT level. Now, that's a big deal. It's a big deal for us.
It's a big deal for the profession.
And I think for the profession, absolutely. The AEMT level has been identified in the CAHEP standards for probably 20 years. The issue really is that no one's really ever pushed it to that level and said, what are we going to do? Are we going to start looking at that? So again, history, look back a couple of years prior to the pandemic. In 2018, the National EMS scope of practice was being revised by NHTSA. There were a technical expert panel group that was, working on that project for a couple of years. And the report out period in 2018, I went to Washington, D.C., was asked to come and listen to the report out. And we were asked the question specifically, if we insert a date, January 1 of 2025, into the document, would the CoAEMSP and would CAHEP be prepared to voluntarily accredit advanced EMT programs? So we took that back to our board. Our board said, that's intriguing. Let's take a look. And so we did. We put together a meeting, had several days with several of our senior staff and board members together, looked at that, and we kind of had a plan. We were moving along that continuum, and then the pandemic hit. As you well know, and everybody out there knows, we shut the world down. We were just trying to survive during that period, keep the educational pipeline open. And it wasn't probably until about 2 years ago that we got back on track, right? The pandemic's kind of in the rearview mirror now. We're living with it. And we started going back to that and looking at it. So now here we are approaching what before was about 7 years out. Now we were 2 years out, and we've done a lot of work. So we've got all those materials now published on our website. We have a webinar that's scheduled for actually tomorrow. I'm not sure when this podcast will be out there, but it will be archived. So if people are interested in learning more about the Advanced EMT process, it'll be on our website.
So where can they go for that? Where is your website?
They can go to www.coaemsp.org, and they can. Well, we've got a tab on the main page. You can find all you want to know about Advanced EMT and our efforts. You could click on that and tell you everything. All the materials are there.
Excellent. Well, thank you certainly for what you do at CoAEMSP and for the EMS community. And certainly the National Registry in particular appreciates the partnership we have with you as you call us, the bookends of the EMS education agenda for the future.
I think there were some smart people, Bill, that preceded
Smarter
us.
than us.
They called it the bookends. But I would say also that our work together with the National Registry of EMTs is integral to the success of EMS professionals that are out there taking care of people. And we all want them to be well prepared. And I think the exam allows them to measure that. And the accreditation process allows us to evaluate the schools. So again, thanks to the National Registry for all of that.
All right. Appreciate that. Thank you for joining us. And as always, stay safe. Thank you for joining us for this episode. If you wouldn't mind, please click the like and subscribe buttons, as well as the notifications so you can get notifications of upcoming episodes. Also, for the latest and greatest happenings of the National Registry, feel free to go to nremt.org. Thank you very much. And again, stay safe.